Hi, Brittany. Super nice to have you here.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
So, I'd love for you to start with telling us a little more about what it is that you're doing right now.
Okay. Yeah, so right now, I currently, as my 9 to 5, I work as a UX designer in the tech industry. And I have recently started my own coaching business and podcast to help women with making career transitions. So my goal is to inspire women that and kind of help them shift their mindset so that they too can believe that a change is possible for them, especially if they're in a place where they felt kind of stuck for a while.
Yeah, I love that. And I think so many people will be able to relate. So tell us a bit about your own journey and where kind of this originated from, this desire to help.
Sure, yeah. So when I was in college, I changed my major multiple times, as many people do. And for a while, I was a graphic design major and had a bout of imposter syndrome and thought I have to change my major again because this isn't. I thought I wasn't good enough for that, that industry. And so I switched to elementary education, and that's what I ended up graduating in and working in as a professional off and on for about 10 years. And it was off and on because I started teaching and like pretty instantly realized that it wasn't my forever career. Like
Okay.
I just wasn't happy. I was always stressed out. It didn't feel like I could truly be myself in that setting. And so I tried to figure out what to do instead and how to do it. My first attempt was leaving education and going back to school.
Mhm.
I went back to school and got an associate's degree in interior design, and I worked in that industry for a couple of years. And it was a really positive experience because it kind of opened up my eyes to like other possibilities that I hadn't even
Mhm.
explored before when I was younger or when I thought, oh, teaching's all I can do.
Yeah.
Um, but that career path didn't really like pan out the way I like anticipated. And so I ended up back in the classroom. And I thought maybe if I change the grade that I teach, maybe if I change the school, maybe that would make it better.
Yeah.
And it didn't really work. And so I spent another few years teaching and kind of feeling like I had failed, like I had failed this idea of changing careers. And now I was stuck back in education and still
Mhm.
feeling a lot of the same feelings that I felt originally. And what ended up happening was there was a pandemic that shut everything down and gave me the time and the space to really explore what was next for me. Because I was definitely at a point in my career, my teaching career, where I thought, okay, what am I doing now? Like I need a challenge, right? Or I need a change of some sort. And
Mhm.
so through a lot of research, through talking with some trusted friends, I stumbled upon UX design, did some research on what that actually looked like, and felt like it really resonated with my strengths and what I had learned about, myself as a person, as a professional,
Mhm.
throughout my career and my life. You get older and wiser a little bit, and um, found an online program and a career coach that helped me make the transition into the career I'm in today. So because it was such a big impact on my life and it really a really positive change. And I'm much happier in my career today. I wanted to give back and help other women because I've met many women who are still stuck and make excuses and, eh, you know, rationalize why they couldn't ever do something like this.
Mhm.
So, and I want people to know that it is possible for them and it's not unheard of and um it's not a bad thing, to switch maybe midlife what you're doing with your life kind of a thing. So,
I love that. Yeah, I can totally understand that. And the whole, when you said you felt stuck and you did go and try the interior design, and then definitely can relate. I think a lot of people wonder if it's just the industry or maybe the employer, the company, or maybe the division that I need to change, or maybe the leader that I need to change, and maybe things would be better, because sometimes they can be better. So you tried it. I just want to kind of highlight it. You tried that and that didn't work. So then you kind of made the conclusion that teaching is not your life's task, like that something's missing still. What questions you were asking yourself
yeah,
and exercises you were doing to
yeah,
get that, okay, teaching is not it, but finding
what
UX.
is? Yeah. So, a few things. I My last few years of teaching, there were a lot of challenges. I was working at a brand new school, and that was really interesting experience. Um, of what it looks like to get organized and like set rules and expectations of students and how things operate. And I found myself really like criticizing like how that process was unfolding and like how I might do things differently. And it kind of dawned on me like, okay, this is something that I think I would be good at, like organizing and setting up um, like processes,
Yeah.
right? So that was one thing. And then, and so it's not really like answering a question, but it's kind of taking moments to like self reflect, right?
Yeah.
Um, and,
Kind of
and
one
then
of those spark moments or light bulb moments. You're like,
Yeah. It's like it's
"Wait a
more
minute."
about getting curious, right? Because I was getting stuck in this whole like judging, this what I was seeing. And then I kind of took a step back and was able to say, wait, what does this even mean about me? Like, why am I so worked up about it? Or like, why am I so passionate about it? Or and so this idea of instead of judging your thoughts or judging other people or whatever, like just getting curious, like what does it mean about you? And then when the pandemic hit, we as teachers had to start, teaching online.
Okay.
And one of the things we had to do was like create a website for our classroom, and upload all the assignments. And um, so I found myself like getting really sucked into the creating my website and designing it and thinking through all of the how it would be used and then of course all the little design details and I was like really excited about it. And so that was another thing that I was like like how could I do something like this in my day to day. And so with those kind of with the getting curious about maybe what I was currently doing and kind of reflecting on what it meant about me, I was able to kind of piece together the fact that one of the things when I was a graphic design major, I felt like I wasn't creative enough or like innovative enough.
Okay.
And I mean, of course, that's my like 20 something self, mind. But when I was recognizing some of my strengths, right, in this process of exploration of what I want to do next, I thought, I don't have to necessarily be innovative to be a designer. And that's one of the things about UX design that I felt kind of excited about was the fact that you're thinking through processes and how it's going to best serve the user. And so it's not always necessarily about being innovative. It's about it's about being smart, right? And it's about using patterns that have already been established in the design world that already work. And so I just kind of latched on to that fact that I could design in a way that was kind of practical, which I feel like I am very practical as a person in a lot of ways, but still kind of have fun with it, with that beauty, like creating beautiful things part of it. So that's how I came about UX design feeling like it aligned more with me and who I am and my strengths.
I love that. Well, I wanted to ask you a couple of things. One of them was, so you did start with graphic design major. Why, isn't that pretty similar to UX design? Or kind of why did you switch?
Yeah. Well, so graphic design is more like print or like stationary type design. Maybe not so much print anymore, right? Because there's so much technology, but or UX design is a bit more interactive.
Okay.
And so um,
Mhm.
it's still applying very similar
Yeah,
skills.
that's what I was thinking. You kind of like
Yeah,
felt like you were on track
yeah,
even from early on, but then you
yeah,
switched to elementary.
yeah.
That's so interesting.
I know. And that's the other thing too. Like there was a part of me that was kind of like, oh my gosh, I went in like this circle, right? Like I
Yeah,
just like
that's
circled
what I
back.
thought.
And
Like
it took me how many years to figure out that like I was actually onto something
early
but
on, which is fabulous. Yeah, that's why I
yeah,
asked, like, what made you change?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so I think it's a matter of I've been doing a lot of like personal like development, right? Like for many, many years. And I finally, I think, gotten to a place where I just trusted myself more that I
mm,
could actually like do the thing that I really wanted to do and like believe that it was possible. So
yeah, 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 yeah. So do you feel like that was part in kind of why you changed into teaching? Because somehow you didn't, whether it's this good old, advice that you don't see the practicality of it or how you would quote unquote make money, provide for yourself, or you haven't seen good examples.
yeah, I mean, I think teaching felt familiar in the respect of I've been going to school my whole life. I always had a positive school experience. I always enjoyed learning.
Yeah,
Um, and I love kids, and um, I just thought, oh yeah, I'd be good at that, like I could do that.
yeah,
Um, and I think there's definitely more examples of people doing that,
yeah,
even especially in my family.
yeah,
I have teachers in my family, and I
yeah,
think at the time it felt safe, you know,
yeah,
um, and stable and reliable, and like I could kind of see
yeah.
what that could look like. But with graphic design, I kind of psyched myself out of,
Mhm.
what that of that even being an option for me at the time
Mm,
because of a lot of self-doubt
mm,
and um, yeah.
Thank you for the honesty. And it made me think. I had an interview some time ago, It's one of the, initial episodes with a strengths finder coach,
Yeah.
Kristen Clark. And it's just when you talked about the loop, and sometimes we can feel sad or feel grief for the time lost, right? How and for whatever reason we didn't trust ourselves, we didn't listen to the guidance, we talked ourselves out of something. It's different for everybody else, but like you, uh Kristen shared the story how she actually was in college, and like she, when it came to picking a major, um it was at the time, it was like 2 decades ago, more than 2 decades ago. And it was, still on paper where you were literally reading, in the printed form, the different options. And how when she read interior design, and there was this one moment like ta-da, like almost like the divine intervention, right? Your intuition, like the hairs on your body stand up, like there's this resonance. And then that moment passed, and she hadn't seen like examples of interior design, anybody doing it around her. And so once that moment passed, she went with a practical route, and her loop was 20 plus years. Then in corporate America, I think it was marketing or something like that. So it's just so interesting, and that's why I love these stories. And like, so people also don't beat themselves up. It's life happens, and it's just so it was a relatively smaller period of circle and everything. And it's just like,
Yeah.
that's why I'm asking the questions kind of to tease it apart. And then how, okay, so it's almost like, again, divine intervention, whatever you believe in, but like kind of redirection, right? On your path, or kind of the next exit, or next layer, next level of your path, to the pandemic happening, and it being in your kind of those, the operational kind of things that you're looking at, kind of like you said, judging and noticing. And then also the online, right, where you are, this opportunity is essentially coming into your life, right? You are quote unquote forced to do things, teach things differently. And the reminder, right, about online and this exploration and noticing what you like is brought into your life, and you're kind of open to it because you're sitting with a question. How did you think of, put it together that it's UX design?
Well, so one of the blessings that came out of the
Mm.
pandemic was that I reconnected with a good friend of mine, and she had been a teacher,
Okay.
and we were roommates once upon a time, and we were teaching at the time, um, and then when we went our separate ways, she was leaving teaching to go into tech, right? And so I kind of caught up with her about how things were going, and, learning a little bit about what it was like to work in the industry, and, shared with her that, what I was thinking and this whole experience of building the website and whatever. And she's like, there's this career in tech called UX design. And she's like, I think, and actually, I think she started with UI design. So UI is more of the design side of it, and the UX is more of the experience side of using a website. And so, anyway, I started digging into UI and UX because she just kind of threw it out there.
Mhm.
And the more I learned about it, the more I thought, okay, there's the UI side, there's the interface, what people see, and then there's the like practical side of it, right? Like I keep mentioning, the process side of it, and creating things that work in a way that makes sense to people. And I felt like that really utilized both my strengths. So that's how I stumbled upon UX design.
Love that. So it's just so amazing how it's not like how we you said follow curiosity, and when you knew that you want something else, these experiences and also through people where and the answers, right? You're kind of piecing it together to walk into the next stage of your purpose. I think it's beautiful. Were there, you said you've been doing your own work,
Mhm.
kind of like what allowed you to notice, to be open, and to kind of start to start to call in kind of these changes.
Yeah. Well, my career was such a pain point in my life that I did a lot of like I found a lot of different I did a few like coaching online like courses
Yep.
to try and help me figure it out. I worked with um and the well, okay, I worked with um one career coach in particular. She did small group coaching and she had like a step by step like the lessons you would go through and the workbook activities you would go through to try and really uncover what you really wanted to do. So that was like one example of something that I did. I also did a lot of like well, I've started going to therapy and trying to really better understand myself and love and accept myself more, and then in through that finding resources um, such as books or podcasts that really helped me um, just start loving myself and like
Mm.
being um, compassionate towards myself
Yeah.
more. So yeah, just a lot of like mindset work as well as like educating myself and yeah, so those are some of the things, and I still I love learning and I love
Mm.
um I'm very spiritual, and I I love hearing like new perspectives on the world. I don't know if
Yeah.
that makes sense, but
Yeah.
yeah, so those are some of the things that I did to kind of get myself in that space where I was more ready, right? To
Mm.
like make a change.
Yeah. And I think so many people can relate. It's I mean, it can be painful, right, when you're sitting with it, and like you said, when you're stuck. And sometimes you can feel almost like if it continues and you're not sure what to do or which direction to take, and more years go by, right, and you get more senior in your career, it can feel pretty daunting and desperate. I know I've cried, and um is like um I was just thinking, are the like what touches you most? Is it like because you started crying and something got stirred up in your heart and soul, and is it the and I think it was around the time when you talked about also self-love. Were you hard on yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely type A, perfectionist personality. So yeah, hard
Yeah,
on myself. Yeah.
yeah. And I think so many successful women can find themselves in that. Did you change anything around that? Like, how did you start softening up on yourself?
Yeah. Um, I think it's really just a lot of like little practices. And I definitely went through I've gone through phases, right? But I think one of the big turning points for me, sorry, there's a piece of like, it's almost like this aha moment of, oh wow, like that girl that I was that made that decision was really like, I'm really grateful for her, and like thinking back on it at the time, you don't realize what an impact um one seemingly insignificant small decision might have on your trajectory, right? So, yeah, I think the emotion comes from like this feeling of gratitude for that girl and kind of recognizing that I maybe didn't give myself enough credit, for the decisions that I made and, for other decisions that I made up to this point.
Yeah, because we just move on, we move in life, next, next, and um, sometimes, we don't even look back, like how much courage it took, right? How it pulled on so many different aspects um, of our personality and how much was involved in actually making that change. And it sounds like it also had a big impact on on your life quality and how you feel. So, can you maybe talk a little more about so how do you feel now that you are doing UX design compared to when you were describing when you were not in alignment, right? Not in the right job for you of teaching when you were feeling stressed. Like what's the difference?
Yeah, I think the difference is I feel like I can show up as um, more authentically,
Okay.
and I feel like I am using my strengths regularly. Um, and like maybe not even because I think I was a good teacher, like, and uh, I had strengths in that profession, right? But I just feel like maybe it's more of using the strengths that I would prefer, to use more
Yeah.
regularly. Again, coming back to that authenticity or authentic part
Mhm.
of it, and also like being in a space where I'm learning things that I want to be learning about, I think one of my biggest struggles with figuring out, well, what's next for me in teaching was, if I get a master's degree, what do I want to have a master's degree in? Like there really wasn't anything that was like calling out to me that I was excited about. And so I feel like that's a difference as well. Like I'm more excited to about learn and grow in this space and learn more about UX design and
Mhm.
how to get better at it.
Yeah, because I mean, you can be good in all kinds of wrong jobs, and find yourself after 5, 10, 15 years stressed, super tense, right? With
Right.
it taking a toll on your health, your body, your availability for your family, your energy level. Would you say that being right, pivoting and making the change into a more aligned work, did it increase also your energy level and quality of life in ways?
Yeah, definitely. And as you're talking, I think it makes me think about this idea of when you are trying to decide on a new career path, you do have to determine a lot of those things ahead of time, right? Like, what do you want your work-life balance to look like? And how do you want, or like thinking about what benefits you need, like time off or specific kind of health insurance or whatnot. Like you need to think through those kinds of things too. It's not just like what you're doing every day, but like how it is impacting your quality of life. So definitely those have played a role as well. I feel like working in the tech industry has been interesting because it's a little bit more laid back. And as a teacher, I was not used to that at all. It's always like you're go, go, go. Like you're always trying to think of the next thing, think ahead and prepare for what's coming next. And there's a little bit more of like time to sit and think through things and like take your time and whatnot. And so that's definitely really been helpful for my stress level and my quality of life. And another thing about teaching is you can't always just like leave at the end of the day and leave your work at work. There's a lot of taking things home to get things done because nothing's ever done, and there's definitely less of that in my current job as well. So, yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. So if somebody's sitting right in the position where they feel something is missing, they feel stuck because they have years of experience in a certain field. So what would you advise them are some of the key questions they can start to be curious about and answer for themselves to find their own UX design career, quote unquote, right? Their own
Yeah.
next step and more aligned work.
Yeah. I think it I think one thing would be looking at what you're doing now and reflecting on the pieces of it that you enjoy doing. Not always that you're good at, right? But that you really enjoy. Maybe that you get wrapped up in and you kind of get in your flow, like, and you lose track of time, like, or just things that get you excited. Um, so again, that curiosity reflection piece. And then also, like we just talked about, evaluating what is it about this job right now that is maybe affecting my life and how I'm living my life and how do I want my life to look different. Do I live with tension headaches and I'm just over that and I'm ready to get to a place where that's not so prominent anymore, or do I not have the time that I want with my family? And so evaluating like those two sides, and then just kind of exploring like career options, talking to people, and the one thing that I also want to say is like you don't have to have it all figured out like right now, like all in one fell swoop,
Yeah.
right? Um, it's going to be a process, and you can say, "Oh, I think I this career might be the one for me," and then start going down that research like rabbit hole and talking to people that are in the industry and getting a better idea. And then maybe you find out, no, that's not quite it.
Mhm.
And you're allowed to continue to
Mhm.
pivot along the way.
Mhm.
So I think
Yeah.
that would maybe be my advice on how to get started.
Yeah. No, that makes sense, definitely. And how I wanted to go back or come back to that being hard on yourself. What what do you think is the cost we pay when we are so like this high standard, like you
Yeah.
said, perfectionism, right?
Yeah.
Of yourself in your head.
I think the cost is like giving yourself away to something else that's not really you. I think that when you're a perfectionist, there's a lot of what will other people think of me?
Mhm.
Um, or how do I do this thing so that I'm not judged or ridiculed or whatnot? And you're giving your power away when you do that. So coming back to yourself and like recognizing that you're such just how great you are and like how capable you are and trusting that you know what's best for you. I think, and like I said, just coming home to you and not giving your power away or like pretending you're something you're not, right? Is really where you're going to find the most peace and joy and alignment.
And how do we start doing that?
Yeah.
Start like those layers can run deep.
I I mean, there are a lot of tools out there. It kind of depends on what resonates with you the most. I know for me, it helped to start doing yoga and kind of learn what that practice is about and how it's not necessarily about um, the movements, but it's about being in the moment and being present with yourself. And I think so that was a good kind of starting point for me to then to be in my body, you know, to like and not be thinking about everything else going on out there. Um, which is challenging, but that also kind of led into, uh, learning about meditation and what that looks like and implementing that tool. Um, and, a lot of people think meditating is like getting rid of your thoughts, but it's not, it's observing your thoughts. And so back to being observant,
Mhm.
um, that theme that keeps coming up. And there's just a lot of great resources out there to start being more introspective, And so it really is whatever resonates with you. And a lot of the time it's just going to be a starting point. And then you're going to want to like learn more and more. And like, there's all these amazing modalities out there um, that
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
really enjoyed learning about.
I love that. Yeah, because you said that you've been on a journey yourself, and I was, yoga makes sense, like getting in touch, like getting out of your head, right? More in touch with your body, like the whole holistic wisdom. Not just mind is just a tool. I love that. Um, wow. So, and now I'm just thinking now you started a podcast
Yeah.
yourself, and kind of what drove you to do that and drove you
Hmm.
to now from UX to wanting to coach.
Yeah. Um, like anything else, it's definitely evolved over time. But I have been listening to Kathy Heller's podcast for a long time now, and I've participated in some of her programs, and I like the more that I listened to her encouraging us to say that like your voice is needed and like ultimately I was originally starting with building an online course and in the process of figuring out, well, what do I want to teach, it kept coming back to me like this idea of what do I get really passionate about, talking about. And I feel like I have some close friends that we talk often about career stuff, and they're kind of in the stuck phase, and I always get so like passionate about trying to encourage them that there's more, and I've gotten positive feedback from that, like, I really appreciate your perspective and it really helps me like think of things differently. And so anyway, in the process of creating that course and listening to Kathy's podcast, and her encouraging us like our voice is needed, I thought, yeah, let me like start using my voice because trying to put it on paper to like teach a course, like it really wasn't coming out like I wanted it to, you know?
That
And so I thought, let's take a step back and try this avenue first and then go from there. So
I love
that's
that.
kind of what led me to starting to jump into a podcast. And I've been interviewing women for the past 2 months, and my podcast will be released on February 1st. It's called Shift Your Day Job. So I'm excited.
That's awesome. So that's any day. We're recording this at the end of January, but the episode will be released probably March timeframe. So then by then your podcast will be available. And I definitely strongly encourage people to check it out. And I love the theme of you experimenting yourself, that you did. I think it's also makes sense that you want to teach this stuff because you've been in it yourself, so you felt the pain, right? Felt the impact. You can relate. Kind of, it's a different depth when you can relate with somebody from having been there in your own experience, and also making the way yourself through different experimentation, and you continue to experiment, even the interior design. I mean, kudos to you that you went and tried it, right? And figured out, okay, it's not for me, because it's so much, quote unquote, easier to find all the reasons to stay in the zone of safety of the known.
Yeah.
And I think that's a fear, right? Because you might experiment and you have nothing to show for it, right? What if it doesn't work out? So it takes tremendous courage.
Yeah. And like we all have it within us. And there's there's so many possibilities that we don't even realize until you start taking action in some way to bring more clarity around what it really is that is important to you and what you really want to make of your life, you know?
Totally. And this is where so what I do, my focus is more on what I call inner alchemy. So yes, I have seen so many and been part of so many offers developed, and I know the behind the scenes, and I also have worked, and I know kind of the interview techniques and the offer negotiation and kind of all those strategies that you think about the traditional career coaching, um, with what my focus is on. And in kind of your story is very much, I'm relating to so many pieces. It's this inner alchemy, the foundation of setting, of you know having that strong solid foundation before you go ahead and kind of apply those strategies. That is much deeper work, inner work, kind of knowing yourself. And I always, I'm still sitting with a question, because you can do, um like you said, it's this life is kind of this beautiful creative process, right? Where you can do all these exercises, right? All the strength finders, all this profiles, answer all the questions. But I'm still kind of like, I think you have to experiment. You still have to try things out. And in real life situations, I think there's only a limit to how far you can figure it out on paper.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one thing that I really learned, especially moving from college into like the real world, like
Mhm.
professional job, like I learned so much more being in the classroom than studying about being in the classroom. And it was only then that the light bulb went off that, yeah, this isn't it for me, you know? And so taking that experience and having recognized that and then seeing how that plays out in as I continue to like learn and grow, I'm just so convinced that hands-on learning is more important than theory itself. So any steps that you can take, actions that you can take are really going to bring you that clarity and also help you make a decision about what really resonates with you, right?
Yeah, I love that because even maybe not for every profession, but for some professions, even the same job can look day to day can look very different from a company to company, even within the same company, from a department to department,
Right.
business to business. So it is not always a linear path. What would you say are like what is an I don't know, number one lesson you've learned or top lessons you've learned, along your journey?
Yeah. Um, I think one of the top lessons I've learned is that I know more than I think I do.
Yeah.
um, and that I can trust in that. Like I can trust myself more.
Yeah.
Um, and another lesson is I just had it. Hold on one second.
That's okay because I'm thinking I can trust myself if we truly I invite everybody to feel into it. Like it's a very profound acknowledgement. And I think sometimes when we are stuck, when we feel the pain of being in the wrong job, but not also moving forward, right? Actively taking steps, having all these good reasons why to stay in the zone of familiar, even though we know it's not working for us fully, is because we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust our own capability, and we don't trust that we can navigate and be okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably my top lesson because ultimately it's like this idea of I've gotten myself this far in life.
Mhm.
Why would I think that I'm suddenly like going to fall flat on my face and my life fall apart? I don't know.
I mean,
um,
I've been there. I can totally relate. It's a
yeah,
place.
and it's really easy to get wrapped up in um, societal expectations or family expectations, right? And um, being able to choose what voices you're listening to and which ones you're like, thank you, but you can stay over there,
Yeah.
because you're trusting yourself
Yeah.
and you're also looking for people that can help you with continuing to trust yourself rather than people that are coming in that create self-doubt in your abilities. And so,
Yeah. So much because add the fear, right? Add the where you're like, you talk to them and right away you are in this state where oh my God, I'm taking nervous action, right? In reaction
yeah,
to sometimes it's not even your fear, but like you said, the society, somebody else comes in with their good opinion and their way of living and approaching life and coming from the perspective of lack. And it's so, if you're more sensitive, it is so easy. You have to be really strong
yeah,
to listen to your own guidance.
yeah. And keep in mind, like it's not always going to be easy, and you are going to doubt yourself, right? That's just part of the process, though. It's about how do you come back to it every time, like how do you get yourself back into, okay, I had my, my moment, my day, whatever, but I know, like, I trust myself. So how do I come back to that, that centering and that foundation, like you mentioned?
I love that. And how do you differentiate between what is the reactive mind, right? Mind has a job to solve problems,
Yeah.
versus that truer wisdom and inner
Yeah. I think it's it's a practice to, like, when you're in that reactive mode, being in tune with like the stress or like this feeling of overwhelm, and in the moment being able to kind of stop and say whoa and kind of take a step back. You definitely have to be very self-aware, so it's going to take practice. And but even if you can do that like one time in the middle of your day, like that's progress, but taking that time and being like, whoa, okay, this is how I'm, like, I feel my body, it's really like stressed. So, what can I do in this very moment? Like, I can breathe or and take deep breaths, or I can remove myself from the situation and go for a little walk, or I can turn on a song and kind of change my mood. Like, there's all these like just little things you can do to kind of get yourself out of that reactive feeling and back into, okay, this is me. I'm here, I'm in the present, right? And what can I do now moving forward? Like, how can I approach this situation moving forward?
Mhm. I love that. And I think it's like it ties a little bit in kind of what you were talking about. Yoga is that awareness of like enlisting like your embodied experience. It helps when you're kind of employing all or deploying all of your senses, like dropping into like more than just a narrative and the circle, the loop in your mind,
Yeah.
and connecting with what you're feeling. And I think also tying into what you said about being gentler on yourself, right? Okay, when it happens, not ostracizing yourself, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what did you do, right? The judge can be really strong, but having that softness and okay, well, I went there. I went down that rabbit hole,
Yeah.
and like I'm not proud of what I said. I totally was in a reaction mode. I see like
Yeah.
the 6-year-old showed up
Yeah.
and reacted with the other person's fears, and like it all got entangled, but now, okay, we're gonna try again.
Yeah. 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 And that's the thing. It's just like you learn, like, what are you learning all the time? That's just part of life. And so instead of being hard on yourself, just kind of reframing it like, okay, I spent all that time, in this spiral. I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm going to choose, like how I'm going to move forward with my day, or, the next hour or whatever it is. Just to kind of help you get back on that track of
Yeah,
trusting yourself, loving yourself, and accepting that you're human and that it's okay. Like, we're always learning, and learning is the way to growth. So
I love that. Yeah, I call it the okay, now I have a nice like running creek in the back behind the backyard of my house. And so I'm like, okay, I just need to go to the creek.
yeah,
Sit by the creek. Like, no,
yeah,
don't need to engage or make any decisions from this space when you feel like your
yeah,
body, all
yeah,
like agitation and you're in reaction. So let's just go there.
yeah, absolutely.
I love that. So, Brittany, how can people find you? I know you mentioned your podcast, but how can people follow and find you otherwise?
Yeah. I'm on Instagram at career.shift.brit. And I also have a website, brittanycates.com/home. And I'll, provide you all the information. So the links are in the show notes. And then, yeah, my podcast is coming out soon, and I'm excited for that. So,
I'm excited for you. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you would like to leave us with?
um, good question. I just, I guess I just want to say that I was in a place where I didn't even realize like all the possibilities that are out in the world. And I just want people to know that there's so many opportunities for you that you haven't explored yet, that you don't even know are out there in the world, and to have the faith that you're going to figure it out and you're going to find it. And it's not going to be a straight path, and it's not going to look the way you think or want it to look, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth the risk that you feel like you're taking right now, because you are going to find so much more joy and happiness through the process and on the other side of it.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. And thank you for the vulnerability and openness. I think it was a beautiful conversation, so I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hi, gorgeous. What did you think about the conversation with Brittany? We'd love to hear from you. You can direct message me on Instagram at Career in Technicolor. And also, Brittany's contact information is in the show notes. And I'm excited to share that her podcast, Shift Your Day Job, is out and live right now. And take a listen, and let her know what you think of her new venture. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please leave a review and a rating. That is really the best way to support the show and allow more people to find these conversations. And if you know somebody who is in the journey, kind of is sitting in the midst of the feeling stuck, not feeling so happy with their current day job, share this interview and this conversation with them. And last but not least, I know how busy you are. So, my deepest gratitude and thank you for taking the time to be a part of this conversation and to listen to it. And I want to leave you with this thought from the book In the Flow of Life by Eric Butterworth. And he says that you can stand still and believe that there is no decision to be made, only a direction to discover. The next time you have an important decision to make, give yourself a chance. Let your mind become an instrument rather than thinking of it as a source. Get plugged in and let this fantastic process work for you. So at the end, I invite you to connect with me on Instagram. I'm at Career in Technicolor, and let me know what you thought about this conversation. I'd love to hear your feedback, and if you have any recommendation for future guests, also let me know. Send me their names, and let's make it happen. Have a fantastic rest of the day.